A brief note. The first reading talks about the call to be a servant of Christ. Those of us in the religious life, for I count myself thus, we were called to bring the good news to you. For you see how Paul speaks in the letter. How can they call on Jesus in whom they have not believed? How can they believe in him whom they have not heard? How can they hear without someone to preach? How can people preach unless they are sent? And he lines it up in the same way as if you had children. How can you have dessert if you have not made it? Well, we can't make it. Well, if someone hasn't made it for you, how can that be? Well, you make it. Well, I had to do things for you today. Who else will make it? Aunt Annie. Well, Aunt Annie was picking up the messes for me because you had torn down this. Who could make it for Aunt Annie? Daddy! Daddy's not going to make it. He has to make the money to buy the ingredients. Grandma! No, Grandma's not going to do it. Who will do it? I don't know. So you see, when you make a mess, or when you get into trouble at school, you can't expect a pudding or a dessert, because there must be something that can't be done. When you behave like this, we can't make a pud or get a cake done or even bake biscuits, because we have to leave what we are doing to go take care of these things. Oh, I'm sorry, Mommy. Okay. So every time you hear the word, whether it comes from my mouth with my voice, or it comes from your local minister, reverend, priest, thank them. Today I give you a lesson about our great Saint Andrew, the apostle, and this lesson has words describing his martyrdom that was from an actual witness to it. The name Andrew in Greek means manly, brave, and from the Aramaic, it means manhood or valor. Like other Greek names, it appears to have been a common one among the Jews, Christians, and other Hellenized people of Judea. No Hebrew or Aramaic name is recorded for him. Andrew the Apostle was born between 5 and 10 AD in Bethsaida, Galilee. The New Testament tells us that Andrew was the younger brother of Simon Peter, likewise a son of John or Jonah. Subsequently, Andrew was referred to as being present on some very important occasions as one of the disciples more closely attached to Jesus. Andrew told Jesus about the boy with the loaves and fishes, and when Philip wanted to tell Jesus about the Greeks seeking him, he told Andrew first. Andrew was present at the Last Supper. He was one of the 4 disciples who came to Jesus on the Mount of Olives to ask about the signs of Jesus' return at the end of the age. After Christ's death, Andrew preached in Scythia, along the Black Sea and the Dnieper River, as far as Kiev, and from there he traveled to Novgorod. Hence, he became the patron saint of Ukraine, Romania, and Russia. According to tradition, he founded the See of Byzantium, later Constantinople and Istanbul, in AD 38, installing Stachys as bishop. Andrew, along with Saint Stachys, is recognized as the patron saint of the Patriarch of the Constantinople. And as for the Apostle Andrew, here are excerpts of his trial and execution. The holy Andrew said, "I am a slave of the cross of Christ, and I ought rather to pray to attain to the trophy of the cross than to be afraid. But for you is laid up eternal torment, which, however, you may escape after you have tested my endurance, if you will believe in my Christ. For I am afflicted about your destruction, and I am not disturbed about my own suffering. For my suffering takes up a space of 1 day or 2 at most. But your torment for endless ages shall never come to a close. Wherefore henceforward cease from adding to your miseries and lighting up everlasting fire for yourself." Andrew was tortured, beaten, and stretched by a 7-foot by 3-foot cross, and 21 men tried to force him to explain the mysteries of how a lamb could be fully eaten but still reign, and how Jesus could be dead but alive. The murder was to make all people return to worshipping the Roman gods and paying the fees at Roman temples. After he is crucified on an X cross, a crux ducasata, the X cross was the St. Andrew's cross, as Andrew deemed himself unworthy to be crucified on the same type of cross as Jesus had been. It had Andrew tied and stretched, but his joints were not severed. He was said to be eaten alive by wild dogs, all at the order of Agatis, the proconsul. Andrew preached continuously for 4 days to the crowds of over 20,000. They went to the proconsul and demanded he release Andrew. When Agatis attempted to come near to the tree of the cross, so as to release the blessed Andrew, with all the city applauding him, the holy Andrew said with a loud voice, "Do not suffer Andrew, bound upon your tree, to be released, O Lord. Do not give me, who am in your mystery, to the shameless devil. O Jesus Christ, let not your adversary release me, who have been hanged by your favor. O Father, let this insignificant man no longer humble him who has known your greatness." The executioners, therefore, putting out their hands, were not able at all to touch him. Others then, and others endeavored to release him, but no one at all was able to come near him, for their arms were benumbed. Then the blessed Andrew, having adjured the people, said, "I entreat you earnestly, brethren, that I may first make one prayer to my Lord. So then set about releasing me." All the people, therefore, kept quiet, because of the adjuration. Then the blessed Andrew, with a loud cry, said, "Do not permit, O Lord, your servant at this time to be removed from you, for it is time that my body be committed to the earth, and you shall order me to come to you. You who gives eternal life, my teacher whom I have loved, whom on this cross I confess, whom I know, whom I possess, receive me. O Lord, and so I have confessed you and obeyed you. So now in this word, hearken to me, and before my body come down from the cross, receive me to yourself. that through my departure there may be access to you of many of my kindred, finding rest for themselves in your majesty. When, therefore, he said this, he became in the sight of all glad and exulting, for an exceeding splendor like lightning came forth out of heaven and shone down upon him, and so encircled him that in consequence of such brightness mortal eyes could not look upon him at all, and the dazzling light remained about the space of a half an hour. And when he had thus spoken and glorified the Lord still more, the light withdrew itself, and he gave up the ghost, and along with the brightness itself he departed to the Lord in giving him thanks. Andrew's body was taken down by his followers, and the head woman, Maximilla, prepared it with the spices she had prepared herself. Now Maximilla was a beautiful woman, and she had rebuffed Agates' attempts to marry and then rape her. He now was preparing false charges to be laid against her, to be sent to Rome. And while he was arranging these things in the presence of his officers, at the end of the night he rose up, and unseen by his people, having been tormented by the devil, he fell down from a great height, and rolling into the midst of the marketplace of the city, breathed his last.